Have your numbers? Member for Laventille West, you have 23 minutes and 6 seconds left of your original time.
I thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, before we took the break, I was asking the question of the then Minister of Works and Transport, the member for Tabakit. How was it that the Highways Division was engaged in desilting? That is irregular to start with. But the Minister of Works and Transport, who told us that he had in his possession 15 files, well, he doesn't have them anymore because I have them. And I told him they need further attention. Because he pointed out that given that the way it was when I was there, up to when I was there, certain officers in the ministry had certain limits that they can have approved for the issuance of contracts. And that multifaceted way of procurement allowed a whole lot of wrong things to take place in the Ministry of Works. When I was there, I put a stop to that. And we established one common procurement unit along the lines of the procurement legislation, which we have since operationalized. That was the first thing I did when I went there, because we went there knowing a lot wrong had happened. And today the Minister of Works and Transport unearthed and brought proof that a lot went wrong. And I saw my colleagues on the other side behaving holier than thou, like they know nothing about it. The member for Couva North and the member for Couva South. So let me, based on the reopening of this by the member for Orpooch, clarify what the Minister of Works was saying. The Minister of Works and Transport was saying that it was just coincidental that all of these 15 projects carried the exact price, $345,000, not 1 cent more, 1 cent less. So whoever contractor got it, and the contractor was the contractor, and I'll call the contractor's name, put it on the record, Ramken Contractors Limited, specialists in all civil and construction works of Light Pole number 77 Main Road, Tabakit, Trinidad, West Indies. And maybe the member for Tabakit will know this contractor very well. 15 such examples we have in front of us, every one of them $345,000, and with the exception of one, which went for $599,999.85, just 15 cents short of a limit that existed by an officer in the Ministry of Works to issue. And there's a column on this document which says MP's representatives, so that the person who was overseeing this on behalf of MPs in Darsing and Ramdial, Couva South and Couva North, is a man by the name of Bicham Ramuta. So I want to ask the member for Couva South if he knows the man who represented him, who claimed to represent him, called Bicham Ramuta. And I want the member for Couva South North, to tell us whether she knows the person who purports to be her representative, a certain Hemant Maharaj. And I want the minister, the then minister, the member for Tabakit, to indicate whether he knows the man by the name of Indar Suisanka. Let them get up if they want to know and tell us whether they know them. And further to that, by letter dated October the 16th, 2014, all happening under the watch and the leadership and the prime ministerial guide and ethic of the member for Siparia at the time, in a letter addressed from the letter on the letterhead of the office of the Member of Parliament for Couva South, Rudranath Indar Singh MP, email number, and I ain't wasting time with it, dated October the 16th, addressed to the Honorable Dr. Suraj Ratan Rambachan, Minister of Works and Infrastructure. Dear Honorable Minister, request for settlement of outstanding payments. So here is the Member of Parliament writing to the Minister requesting settlement of payments. And the letter says, I refer to the subject captioned in relation to the attached correspondence dated October 7th, 2014, received from Mr. Kenrick Ramlogan, Director of Ramken Contractors Limited. And he goes on, and it is signed by Rudranath Indar Singh. So they're pretending that they don't know. That is on the record. And if they have anything further to say, in my view, they should be telling that to some investigator or some police officer somewhere, not me. Because the member for Urupuch West got up here asking, what does MP and minister have to do in things? And I'll tell you why the Minister of Works and Transport was involved in the importation of a part in a little while. As for the letterhead of the Office of the Member of Parliament for Couva North, I see she twisting up her face opposite to me, playing innocent. Letter dated the 21st of October 2014, again addressed to the Member of Parliament, Dr. the Honorable Suraj Ratan Rambachan, Minister of Works and Transport. Dear Minister, I write you on behalf of Ramken Contractors Limited, situated at Light Pole number 77, Main Road, Tabakit, telephone number 679-2572. The contractor has completed his scope of duty to the silt water courses and so on. As such, I verify, she outlines 5 projects, and as such, I verify the work was completed. As a former Minister of Works and Transport for 16 months there, before my friend took over to continue the good work. I want to tell you this, Madam Speaker. When the work is done, there are officials in the ministry, whether it is roadworks or the silting, whose responsibility it is to certify that the work was done, to protect public money, not no MP. But what was happening here, obviously, is that the minister at the time was he was determining that the work was settled on the advice of my 2 friends who sit opposite me here today. And that is contrary to the procurement and the procedures that we know. These things, I swear to you, could never happen under Keith Rowley administration. And that's the reason why I stand here today proudly in defense of my friend, the Minister of Works and Transport, Senator, the Honorable Rohan Sinanan, in support of him, and to reject this motion. Because to date, Madam Speaker, not one single right-thinking person in this country, unless if they are sick and deranged, could accuse any of my colleagues on this side of putting our hands in public money. Not one. Not one. You hear foolishness about Cell Bill and Roman. I mean, not foolishness. You heard about that. You heard about 92,000 spent in a hotel in Tobago. You heard about that. You know what? By now in the UNC government, the list I went through, all of them was the subject of public consternation and indignation and scorn and ridicule. As my friend just reminded me, the young and bright doctor, he said misfeasance and malfeasance are plenty. Are plenty. So, Madam Speaker, I don't have no point now. There's only one point I'm making is to call the police. I don't want no point now. You had your time. Madam Speaker, having dealt with that matter, I now ask very humbly that may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in the sight of Jah, the Most High, the Most Living God. Because persons raise spiritual matters here. And as I told my Rasta brother Rohan, Adrian Leons a while ago, we didn't come here to play. Exactly. We come here to do serious public business, led by a serious man, member of parliament and prime minister. And as for I don't come to play. We have a job to do. We live on the salary we get, and we do it in spirit, and we do it in truth. You see the corruption and the wickedness and the deception. The member for Urupuch East raised the question of that minority report and so on in this debate. We sat with them for the last few days to carry out the mandate of this parliament on a certain matter pursuant to certain notifications. And we sat, all of us on this side, Mr. Dayal Singh, Member Mitchell, Member Olivier, and we worked conscientiously as hard, brought a consensus on several matters where there were divergences of views. They thanked us last night, congratulated us for the quality of the work, congratulated the staff of the parliament, and lo and behold, the deceptive, deceiving UNC jump up to, I'm sorry, come out today. And say they've submitted minority report. They are, George Chambers, I love you. They are too wicked. Gold-faced. Disgusting. I make no apology for that. And make me scared to be so close in this room to them, but my public duty demands it, and I'm here still. The Prime Minister, in dealing with the issue around the Galatia, told this country, Madam Speaker, that something was crooked about it. The Prime Minister said so. My Prime Minister don't talk lightly, you know. When he speaks in public, he speaks on the basis of actual, factual information received. And he was right. Something went wrong. A lot went wrong. A lot went wrong. The question is, if the thing was crooked, the question really was, who bended? Who bended? When they began this whole story about Ocean Flower, and what's the name of the firm? And Bridgman's, they began thinking that they would have found the Minister of Works and Transport in the same condition that many of them found themselves. They were judging him and us by their twisted standards. And, Madam Speaker, the minister correctly pointed out today, once these issues became alive, the Prime Minister got a private citizen to go on a fact-finding exercise, a certain Mr. Muti. And he provided the Prime Minister with facts and figures and information, upon which action has been taken, because we now have information from that exercise by Mr. Muti, which, as the minister told us earlier, demonstrated that the thing was crooked, but it had nothing to do with my ministerial colleague. And as a consequence, persons are being held accountable. Persons are being held accountable. So I really don't want to hear my colleagues on the other side, on those matters. The Minister of Works and Transport, Madam Speaker, I want to tell you, is the deputy political leader of my wonderful, beautiful, long-standing People's National Movement. He's the Minister of Works and Transport. He's a senator in our proud parliament. He's a hard-working and successful businessman who gave up his business activities to come and offer public service like many of us have done since independence in this country. He's here making sacrifices in order to serve the people of this country, and I don't think he's a penniless man who needs to interfere with nobody pennies. So I stand here proudly in support and express absolute and total confidence in my colleague, the Minister of Works and Transport. And one of the reasons why I do so is because as a former Minister of Works and Transport myself, and with knowledge, intimate knowledge of some of the matters, let me share with you, Madam Speaker, insofar as the QREP interchange is concerned, you heard one of their friends who now carries on a newspaper, Sunshine. You heard my colleague. He tells you in the Sunshine of Friday the 5th of December 2014, when them and Jack Warner had their breakup over issues. Boy rat, woman rat, man rat. You know, they had their fight. And the article says, Sunshine was told by two directors of NIDCO, and I'm quoting it, that there was a private meeting between Rambachan and the board, which meeting was held at 8 a.m. in the ministry on Tuesday, September the 2nd, 2014, 2 days before the board met to consider Vincey's bid. Vincey is a big contractor that was involved in that project, the QREP interchange. And just before Junior Minister Stacey Rupnarayan sent an email to Prime Minister Kamla Prasad Bisesa expressing concern about the QREP interchange and the bidding process. She was fired for that too. and was made to apologize and humiliated when she, as a young woman, a young junior minister, minister of state, wrote to the Prime Minister, much like Madam Donaldson Honeywell did when she was in the office of the Solicitor General. And the member for Siparia did nothing but fire her. The article continues. At the private and secret meeting, the directors said Rambachan had accused Vinci of being PNM and also accused NIDCO's board deputy chairman, Professor Winston Sweet, and Roger Joseph, vice president of NIDCO, as being PNM also. Well, we know that's how they see the world, UNC and PNM. Money and public money. Took, take. All of those things. That's how they do it. Right? The article continues. The directors told Sunshine that Rambachan instructed them that Lakshmi Singh must get the interchange contract and that they should know who their boss is. So when the member for Siparia as Prime Minister sent then Solicitor General's Donaldson Honeywell's letter to the then Attorney General when she was complaining about the Attorney General, it's a consistent pattern. That is why they are warming the opposition benches today. They will do it tomorrow, and they'll do it for the next 15 years at minimum, as long as God lives, as long as I have strength. I will defend this country and ensure that they never get a chance to come back in government. They have tainted everything, corrupt and spoilt everything, Madam Speaker. So the member for the Minister of Works and Transport can now boast that the contract to complete the interchange is $250 million less than the UNC had contracted and put in place. So by their departure from office and by his coming, we are now saving the country $250 million on that interchange. As for the highway to Manzanilla, we are building that at $80 million per kilometer because you have to go through, these things are expensive. They were doing it at $40 million per kilometer more. They were doing it at $120 million. And this is not Fitzgerald Hinds saying so. These are measured statistical facts gleaned from the records of the ministry when they were in office as opposed to what we are doing. And that is to the credit of the Minister of Works and Transport. You want us to fire him? He's defending the public interest against you. You were fired. And if we had a chance, we fire you again. We are witnessing in this country, in particular, given our economic circumstances, and in all seriousness, Madam Speaker, in the cabinet week after. Madam Speaker, I need your protection. I'm hearing a voice that sounds coarse and it sounds like it's...
Okay, all right. Member for Couva South, I know you don't know the span of your voice, okay? But Member for Laventille West, I'm sure you can conquer that. Direct your contribution here, and we'll be okay.
I thank you. Maybe I have to have a raspy voice that sounds as though I spent a night in a bar too. Yeah, but Madam Speaker, what we are seeing in the cabinet coming out of the Ministry of Works and indeed everywhere else is the prices and agreed contracts between the same contractors and the state. We are seeing prices going significantly down by millions. So I want to tell the people of Trinidad and Tobago today, truthfully, you do not know, but we are protecting your purse. We are protecting the public interest. And you know, Madam Speaker, by way of metaphor, if you have a tank and a 6-inch water main bringing in the water, and you have leaks all at the bottom of the tank, and then a 4-inch main taking the water out when you turn on, you would never fill up. You'd be losing. We have sealed all the little leaks, and we turn on only when we have to. I want Trinidad and Tobago to know in the Ministry of Works and across the spectrum of the government, we are saving you money. The waste and the corruption has been brought to an end. And we are not saying that they are not public servants and state operators in the state agencies and private contractors and other people who are accustomed to getting more than they were due. We are not saying that they're not about. But once we shine the light on them, we are dealing with it. And they know from the leadership of Dr. Keith Rowley, and they know from the leadership of the likes of Fitzgerald Hinds and this cabinet, those matters cannot continue under our watch. This can't be a case like where the SIS, under the watch of the member for Siparia, who calling on my prime minister to fire my minister, where a contract was given to SIS, a close friend, certain Chris Nalala, for $400 million more than the lowest bidder for that contract. That can't happen around here. That cannot happen. And that was not their first time. They, the member for Siparia, was Attorney General and Minister of Education in the Pandey government between 1995 and 2001. They embarked upon the construction of an airport, a new airport, the one we use every day up to now. That was to cost you, Madam Speaker, the public, $400 million. The UNC wound up spending $1.6 billion on that. And the United States government, their money laundering apparatus, it came up this morning in an FIU interview with us from the Anti-Terrorism Joint Select Committee. The United States money laundering apparatus saw these large sums of money moving out of Trinidad, thought it had something to do with drugs. When they checked it out, they realized it wasn't drugs, and it was something else. Money being siphoned from the airport project. A commission of inquiry was established by the then Prime Minister Manning, led by Mr. Clinton Bernard, a former Court of Appeal judge, and charges flew. From that, up to now, they're using their deep pockets and avoiding their day in court. They go into the Privy Council and coming back, all under the watch of the member for Siparia. That happened. They are out of place to come and tell us about bubble and corruption. When I heard the member for Urpuch using those words today, I said to myself, oh, my Father God, if this was like the days of the Old Testament, the Father would have just strike him down. He using the word bubble and accusing my government of corruption. They are the epitome of bubble corruption. They are the soul and the spirit of bubble.
Madam Speaker, 48.
Okay, so, yeah, but not the bubble. But I don't think it's that word. Okay, but so said. But, you know, there are some statements you made after that. If you could just, you're a man of words. I'm sure you could say it in another way.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Let me proceed. Let me proceed. I made a note of it, but let me proceed. That's all right. And the member for Urpuch is suggesting that we don't even know how to buy a little boat. Well, a boat is not something you just buy over the counter like a pack of Panadol or Fenzik if you have a headache, you know. A boat is a specialized piece of equipment. And them just try to buy it over the shelf. The member for Siparia's Prime Minister went to China, and the Chinese so understand her foibles and frivolity. They invited her to a shipyard in China. And Madam.
Okay, member for West, your original speaking time is now spent. You're entitled to 15 more minutes if you intend to. Please proceed.
Thank you very much. Because what they don't know, everything they do and say, international players study it and watch it through their embassies, you know. So they had a good idea who she was, her fecklessness and frivolity and her other attributes. I'm proceeding. Other traits. Other traits. Anyway, Madam Speaker, they invited her to a shipyard. The member for Siparia. The leader of the opposition. You should be ashamed to hear me say that. They invited her to a shipyard. Yeah, well, he grew up next, you know. They invited her to a shipyard. I agree. They invited her to a shipyard. She just see a boat. The thing have Chinese writing all over it. She just said, give me one of that. Like she had a headache or her foot was swollen. The member for Siparia. And we ended up with a boat that will cost this country $1 billion. Just as how we end up with the Couva Hospital. When they began with that project, they told us it was a grant from the Chinese government. When we got into government and got inside of the books, we realized that grant has cost this country $1.5 billion. And it took the Prime Minister, Minister Stuart Young, last week, when they went to Chogam to speak with the Indian Prime Minister and others, trying to find a manager skilled in the business of hospital management to come to operate that facility so that we could benefit from it. As for the Minister of Works and Transport, I would like to commend him. It is not very many people will go beyond the call of duty as this man did. This man was on his way back from Los Angeles, my colleague, the Minister of Works and Transport. He is in touch minute by minute dealing with the problem of the sea bridge. They tell him, look, we ordered a part, and the part is in Miami. He's on his way home. So how will you get the part? He asked. They say it will take about 2 weeks. Yeah? And they have to get somebody there to get cabinet approval and all for board approval, and somebody to go to Miami to collect the part. All of that going to take 2 weeks. Meanwhile, the minister is aware that the people in Tobago are screaming about the breakdown in the sea bridge. And they say all they needed was this part. So the minister, they paid for it. It was a transaction between the Port Authority and the supplier in Miami. All the minister did, with love in his heart, in the spirit of public service, was to be a messenger, to take it, to bring it to Trinidad and Tobago overnight. I think he should be commended. But I told you the UNC don't know good from bad, nobility from ignobility, wickedness from righteousness. So they came here today to condemn it.
He did not procure it.
And he did not. It's the port who did. He just assessed. He told them, I am passing through Miami, and therefore I'll act as your messenger. Trinidad and Tobago, I will act as your messenger. I think the minister must be commended, man. Save the country time, save the country money, and cut out the noise. But you see, they want noise on the sea bridge. They don't like the fact that the Minister of Finance and a sub-cabinet committee, after the Port Authority failed 6 times to procure a vessel, twice under my watch. I couldn't understand it. Some problem with specifications. I brought an expert and I attached him to them as an advisor to do these specifications. Somehow or the other, they got that wrong again. The man left frustrated. So on 2 occasions under my watch, they could not procure a vessel to replace the Galatia. And 4 times under the minister, the cabinet say, oh my God, the people of Tobago to whom we have a responsibility, screaming and crying and suffering. And as for apology, we extended that a long time ago. So Madam Speaker, sorry. The cabinet appointed a 6-member team, sub-cabinet, and they found a vessel. God has been good to us. Found a vessel that is suited to the route, and it is on its way. It's known as the Galleon's Passage, but they don't want nothing good for Trinidad and Tobago. The fact that a boat is coming, the fact that the TNT Spirit is back in the water, notwithstanding the 1 or 2 little hiccups as you would expect, because the vessel is an old vessel, and they're trying to make it usable until Trinidad and Tobago could afford to buy another new one. And I will take the opportunity to repeat what the minister said. Learning from this, and this situation of maintenance, Madam Speaker, is a situation everybody knows is a weak point in Trinidad and Tobago's records. We have not been very good at maintaining. I know a young man who have about 37 vehicles. Every time an insurance policy is due or service is due, it's come up on his computer, he gets that done. We don't behave like that in Trinidad, unfortunately. So learning from this, the minister has put things in place to ensure that the vessel, the new one, the Galleon's Passage, and the others we have, will be maintained professionally and properly. I could tell you as a former minister, men were paid by the Bay Ferries people to do all night, overnight, every night maintenance. Men ain't come to work, men sleep on the vessel, they play draft, they play all kind of things. Trinidad slack. And the minister was saying today, the problem eventually came to a crushing standstill under his watch, but that condition, that state of affairs, that disregard for maintenance and replacement on a rotating basis as necessary was not in place, and it has been so for 40 years. Our government has simply decided we want to fix these things, and the minister was right. A lot of the corruption on the port, because in many state enterprises, including the Port Authority, there are people who make a living off of that. They master the system, they know how to live, they know how to get money, and they live in the trough. The unions have the port in a stranglehold. I was shocked when I went there as minister. Over time, they have contract with the port union. When you work the first day, them don't have 1 or 2 in 7, or 5 in 7 days, like most people, When you work there for the first day of the week, your first 8 hours, if your first 8 hours is on the weekend or on a holiday, you start getting overtime pay because it's a weekend or holiday. So labor costs, wages on the port, phenomenal.
Overtime is $25 million.
Overtime is $25 million a year. And the port not earning money, but the treasury was always there to fill the gap. All of our thieving and corruption and idleness and waste in this country, the treasury was there. But today, Madam Speaker, she is there no more. When we look back at her, nothing in it, them empty it. They borrow to the limit. They max out the country's $12 billion overdraft. They borrow like it was going out of style and spend it in the way I just explained you with them 15 contracts and more. SIS 400 million. Oh, that's how they do it. Big, medium, and small, everywhere. And that is what we face today. So, Madam Speaker, I am so sick when I read this motion. And I see the member for Siparia. She gets on a platform the other night, and she's quoted in the Express Wednesday, the member for Siparia, quoted in Express Wednesday, the 25th April newspaper, the Express saying, and I'm quoting, his leader, Keith Rowley, continues to try to block for Rohan, and we don't know what hold he must have. What hold Rohan have on the Prime Minister? My Prime Minister, nobody can hold on the easy own man. Own honest, noble man. Maybe apart from Sharon Rowley. Nobody. From my knowledge of the man for the last 22 years. And in terms of hold, I want to know what kind of hold Rachmi had on the member for Siparia. That's the hold I want to know about. What could have explained her conduct in that matter? But I wouldn't go back there now. I would say it was robbery. Not with V. She continues, the member for Siparia.
Not RO either, ParlView.
Any other leader would have fired Rohan Sinanan for his incompetence that has led us to where we are today. The Sea Bridge has been plagued with issues since the PNM came back in office. Since we came back in office, I've just told you this has been going on for 40 years. All the slackness and the corruption and the way they hired the Galatia in breach of any proper procuring rules. And when we won the campaign trail in 2015, we told the country about that Galatia, and we pledged to this country, and the port employees, the port management, the people of Trinidad and Tobago know, and the Galatia owners know too. This government ain't doing it like the UNC. Proper procurement. So they didn't want that. They wanted a 5-year contract, as the minister said, without proper tendering. And they decided they will hold the country to ransom. On Good Friday, they decided pulling out the service. When they realized they couldn't get it, and as the minister said, I was there, I was dealing with them. They were threatening to breach the contract in letters to me. And I didn't budge. I went and I got a senior counsel opinion, because letters were passing between the Galatia Intercontinental, their agent, / Nairi Alfonso, who had the procurement of the Galatia, was an advisor and consultant to the port, and at the same time agent for the vessel that they supposedly procured. And there are those who wonder whether she has a deeper interest in that vessel. But those are matters that will be resolved outside of this house. So I went and sought senior counsel's opinion, and because of the of the letters that were flowing between the port and Intercontinental, senior counsel looked at it and he said to me as minister, because I wasn't taking my own legal advice or taking any advice from my colleagues on the other side, senior counsel said, it appears to me from the correspondence that has flowed, there is an 18-month contract. Once I got that, I understood what the reality was, but they were now on a month-to-month, 18-month contract. So we decided to go and find another vessel, and at the first opportunity, engage in a proper procurement process. The Galatia wasn't happy with that, the people, and they decided to pull the rug when my colleague came in. And my colleague has had to grapple with that in the public interest and all other things that he's had to grapple to. So I stand here in his proud support today, Madam Speaker. And I would have thought that the UNC, members of parliament in this house, recognizing the very serious issues that face us, starting with the economy, which they put on a nosedive for the reasons I've stated. They empty the treasury, the green fund, and the NGC. Yeah, but NGC, they wipe out 16 billion. But the green fund and the, what's the other fund? Yes. No, man. They went and they pledged those. And yeah, the business levy, they pledged those. They pawned them, as we just say, and borrowed the money on them. And they spent out that too, max out the overdraft. All of that they did. And I would have thought they would have come here today to discuss improving the economy, the lifeblood of this country. The economic lifeblood of this country. But they ain't bothering with that. We have issues of crime. We are trying to fix the police service. We are dealing now with the appointment and the process concerning the appointment of the commissioner. They had an opportunity to participate in that. And look what they did today. They don't want anything good for Trinidad and Tobago. They feel that the people's suffering will be ascribed to us, and therefore all they're about to do is create mayhem. This motion is an attempt to create mayhem. But the FIU told us this morning that within the last 2 years, they saw a, and I'm quoting them, a significant increase in the number, 851 suspicious transactions. And the quantity of money around those transactions totaled, I think, about $350-something million. Figure escapes me now, but a substantial increase. No, 28, I think. Yes. So that there are things happening in the economy. People are trying to move money. And people are watching. I would have thought they would have raised those issues in a motion so we could have discussed them. But they don't want that. They don't want that at all. So, Madam Speaker, there's a lot more to be said, but I think I want to ask the member for Tabakit one question. I heard him ask the minister, in my view facetiously, about some contract, some company. I want to ask the member and the public of Trinidad and Tobago one question about a company. The company is called, is it here? Yes. Yeah, make-up name. Well, the member for Tabakit.
For Laventille West, your speaking time is now spent. Member for Princestown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to be able to contribute to the motion before the House, brought by the member for Tabakit at a very appropriate juncture in our nation's history. Madam Speaker, when we looked and we heard the presentation by the member for Laventille West, it is best summarized in one quip, and that is balisé before boat. They have put the interest of their party ahead of the interests of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. You see, Madam Speaker, and I mean this with no disrespect, but there's a quote that says, "Dead man tells no tales." And the member for Laventille West his presentation reminded me of a David Rudder song which spoke about a madman's rant. But it also reminded me of a quotation of former Prime Minister Patrick Manning, who was also a former leader of the People's National Movement. You see, Madam Speaker, when I listened to the presentation of the member for Laventille West, one thing instantly came to my mind, and that was during the time that the member served under the Patrick Manning administration, Mr. Manning would often make reference to one of his own members who he described as a charlatan in a three-piece suit. Madam Speaker, we heard much that was said about corruption. We heard much that was said about the UNC style of doing things. You know, Madam Speaker, I want to remind members opposite about the PNM style of doing things. And we don't have to look very far, you know, Madam Speaker. If we look at July 11, 2017, prime example of PNM waste, mismanagement, and corruption. And who was at the center? Thank you, Madam.
Maybe, yes, good.
Madam, and when we look, who was at the center of some of those allegations that made its way into the public domain on July 11, 2017? Madam Speaker, we were told that a document surfaced in the public domain that spoke about PTSC contracts, not in the hundreds of thousands spoken about by the member for Laventille West, but in the millions of dollars of taxpayers' money. And the member for Port of Spain North St. Anne's West was the one that we advised PTSC that even though there were no contracts that were awarded, pay it anyway. And you know, Madam Speaker, what they stopped short of saying? They said pay it anyway, and they stopped short of saying pay it anyway because they are PNM people. That is what they stopped short of saying. So do not come here to lecture us today and sanctimonious about corruption and how you are supporting the people of Trinidad and Tobago. The people of Trinidad and Tobago in 2.5 years have seen through each and every one of you. The people of Trinidad and Tobago understand what you are about.
Madam Speaker, start point of order 48.6. I am advised that the member for Port of Spain North did no such thing, did not do anything improper with respect to contracts. I would ask
Member, I believe whatever the member says, he takes responsibility for. So,
thank you, Madam. Madam, we heard much about the members ranting about the Piarco International Airport under the Pandey administration. You know, Madam Speaker, I want to ask a very serious question here today. A contract for over $140 million has been awarded, sole select tender, we advised, for a contractor to do work on the Diego Martin Stadium. I want to ask today, who is that contractor? Does that contractor play golf every morning in Mocha with a particular big man because he is a small man? Those are some of the questions that we must ask ourselves, Madam Speaker, if we really want to be advocates of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, the member for Laventille West parroted something that was said by the Honourable Minister of Works and Transport, speaking about the member for Couva North and Couva South, writing about box drain. You know, Madam Speaker, when
I've heard at least 3 times a member suck their teeth. I can't decide who member it is, but that is totally unparliamentary. Okay? Please continue.
Thank you, Madam. Madam, parroted by the member for Laventille West, the Minister of Works and Transport sought to introduce a matter about box drains where the member for Couva North and Couva South wrote inquiring about a particular contractor. Madam, I want to raise that very letter that the minister spoke about. You see, I have a copy of the letter, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, when you come, you must come good. You must come with facts. And do not just tell piece of the story. Tell the whole story. And that is why you will run, but you cannot hide. Madam Speaker, October 11th, 2014, MP Indar Singh wrote this to then Minister Suraj Ratan Rambachan, now member for Tabakit. And in the letter he says, "Dear Minister, would you please investigate the matter to bring resolution?" Madam Speaker, I have a copy of the letter here. October 11th, 2014, MP Indar Singh wrote asking for the matter to be investigated. The member never asked for payments to be made. But you see, that is the impression that they want to give to the population of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, the member for Laventille West, and I thought it was really laughable, coming from the member for Laventille West, I thought it was really laughable. The member said, Nicole Dyer Griffith fired, Gary Griffith fired. The member himself, the member for Laventille West, fired as the Minister of Works and Transport under Dr. Keith Rowley. The member himself, Laventille West, fired for incompetence as the Minister of Public Utilities under Prime Minister Keith Rowley. The Prime Minister tells this country he has confidence in all of his ministers. You know what? You know what he has to say about the member for Laventille West by firing him twice and demoting him to a junior ministry, Madam Speaker? The Prime Minister, by his own admissions, through his own actions, has said, Laventille West is a complete waste of time. I do not want you in my government. And that is essentially what he has said. But, Madam Speaker, when we look at the pattern in government, and the member for Laventille West said, let us look at what is the UNC's history. Let us look at what is Separia's history in government. Let us see what is the PNM's pattern of government, Madam Speaker. You see, Madam, when you fail at law, you start to speak economics like the Attorney General. When you fail at works and transport like Minister Sinanan, you start speaking about sex suits.
On a point of order, 48-4, offensive and insulting language about a member of the House.
Please continue.
And I must thank Port of Spain, North St. Anne's West, because it gave me an opportunity to breathe, because I really want you all to hear this one. You see, when you fail at tourism, you say you know nothing about sports. When you fail at analytics, you start speaking about refugees. Madam Speaker, this government and this minister is on trial today, but each and every single one of them is on trial because they too have contributed to the collapse of the sea and the air bridge, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Honorable Prime Minister would have indicated to this country just a few weeks ago that he had confidence in all of his ministers. One day later, after promoting the member for Diego Martin Central to the Ministry of Housing, he had to fire him. But, Madam Speaker, I want to go through some of the patterns of behavior in this government. You see, Madam Speaker, the member for Laventille West spoke about PIACO. He danced all around different issues under the 2010-2015 administration of then Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar. You know, I remember it was a member for Port of Spain South who took issue with the shoes and the dress and the clothes of Kamla Persad-Bissessar. But not any one of them can stand in Kamla Persad-Bissessar's shoes, far less for her dress. But I'll tell you this, Madam Speaker. What was spent under this government? What was spent under this PNM government? You saw $5 billion down the drain in Petrotrin. You saw $100 million in A&V. Let us hear a little bit more about that. What is the minister's role in all of that, Laventille West? What is the Prime Minister's role in all of that, Madam Speaker? Madam Speaker, you know, the member for Tabakit made a very interesting point earlier, and I really wish to congratulate the member for Tabakit. You know why, Madam Speaker? Because the motion brought by the member for Tabakit represents the pulse of the people of Trinidad and Tobago today. The pulse of anger, the pulse of frustration, the pulse of totally giving up on this government. Madam Speaker, the motion before us is absolutely relevant. And if you ask any layman, far less for those that represent organizations and stakeholders in the Sea Bridge issue, they will tell you that Rohan Sinanan and I will fix my grammar. What is has or have? He definitely have to go. Madam Speaker, today, government, especially the Tobago MPs, the member for Tobago East and the member for Tobago West, must say whether or not they stand in defense of their party or whether or not they stand in defense of their country. That will determine who are the true patriots, Madam Speaker. You know, Madam, when I heard the Honourable Minister of Works and Transport, it told me that the Honourable Minister has a complex, and it's called the Geraldine John complex. You see, Madam, Geraldine John offered the Honourable Minister, during the Easter vacation, some words of advice. And we were told that the Minister and others believe that the Tobagonians can do like Jesus and walk on water. But you see, Madam, I will repeat the words and the advice of Geraldine John to the Honourable Ministers and those opposite, when she said, they too need Jesus. Jesus must take the wheel. You see, Madam, that is the level of frustration our citizens have reached in this country. They do not have faith in their government, and therefore today they are looking for faith in the Holy Word. Madam Speaker, I say to them, like I say to those in Trinidad, the UNC is here. We are ready and prepared, and sooner rather than later, we will relieve you of the pain and suffering of a PNM government. Madam Speaker, the Honourable Minister is yet to tell us what comprehensive, tangible plan has been put in place that will have a long-term effect, because we are not only looking at the short-term effects, Madam Speaker, you're looking at the long-term. So we first started off with the Superfast Galicia. Then we went to the fiasco with the Ocean Flower. In between there came the Cabo Star. And then we have the Galleon's Passage. Minister Rohan Sinanan, we are told, should be renamed Rohan Felix Sinanan. Because instead of ministerial duties, the minister is up and down between Miami to Trinidad, bringing to and fro equipment and Lord knows what else. Now, Madam Speaker, we have seen in this country, and that is where immigration and customs and excise is very important. You cannot have a minister of government interfering in the operationalizing issues that are affecting any state enterprise and ministry. And that is where the member for Oropuch East speaks of ministerial overreach. We can see where it has reached today. It has reached at the doorstep of the Minister of Works and Transport, Madam. Madam, but what is the track record of this minister? This minister became the Minister of Works and Transport, I believe, on October 31st, 2016. And Madam, let us not remember the fiasco surrounding the issues related to the Toco Highway. Let us not forget the flooding fiasco in South Trinidad that took days to see any assistance from the state or the minister. Let us see what has been the track record in terms of real tangible project. This minister is not known for roadworks, you know. This minister is the road patching minister. This minister is not about works and transport, you know. This minister is about Colonel Sanders providing KFC as you wait to take your boat ride. When you take your plane ride, when you pay for a boat ride. That is the legacy. You know, Madam Speaker, when I raised the issue about the track record and the competence of the Honourable Minister of Works and Transport, just a few weeks ago, I raised in this very house the issue of the Self-Help Commission. And Madam, I will show you how I will tie the boat in.
Yes, because I would like you to tie it in very quickly. Okay, please.
Thank you, Madam. Madam, we are speaking about the track record of the minister.
Speaking about the track record of the minister according to this. Right, we're talking about the Sea Bridge. Okay, so if you're talking about the minister and the track record, related to this, please.
Thank you, Madam. Yeah. Madam, I will move on from that point, and there will be another opportunity to show up the other inefficiencies of the minister. But, Madam Speaker, I want you to throw your mind back. Sitting right here at position 47 as a member of Princestown, I remembered when the member for Tobago East took issue with the words of the member for Couva North as it relates to the suffering of Tobagonians because supplies weren't reaching to Tobago as fast as it should have because of the issues related to the sea bridge. And the honourable member shouted across the floor. The honourable said, nobody in Tobago is suffering. Get it right. Well, I believe that the whole country got it right because the minister, the member for Tobago East, signed her political death warrant, Madam Speaker, when she made that comment. You see, Madam Speaker, the honourable minister and member for Tobago East not realizing the frustration imposed by the member, the honourable minister for Works and Transport, on the plight of the people of Tobago, thought that she was representing the views and the feelings of Tobagonians. You know, Madam, from the Tobago Chamber of Commerce to civil society organizations, to associations representing suppliers and so on, Madam, they have come out in total condemnation against the member for Tobago East for those words. Well, their real issue is not with Tobago East. The real issue is with the Minister for Works and Transport. And the same amount of anger and frustration that they feel towards the member for Tobago East, they feel towards the minister, because they understand where the real power lies. You know, Madam, I heard beating their chest. I heard the member for Laventille West speaking about, listen, we support our minister because this minister is a good minister and he's a deputy political leader of the party. Madam, if this Minister of Works and Transport really had the support of the members of his government, the Prime Minister would not find himself absent from the chamber today. Not 1 minute of the Prime Minister's time has been found to add support, and that in itself is an indictment, because the Prime Minister acknowledges the failure of the minister. But we heard on election night, he praised Rohan Sinanan, how great thou art. And that is a price that members of Tobago and the Tobagonian people have to face. That is the price they have to face, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, with your permission, I want to read for you an excerpt that says that the President of the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Commerce, Demi John Cruikshank, is calling for the resignation of members of the Port Authority Board, declaring it as utter foolishness together with the minister. It is clear that the Port Authority Board is incompetent, and we agree, and is not capable of carrying out the functions that they are required to carry out. And I think strongly that the Port Authority members on that board should all hand in their resignations as of today. Because this is utter foolishness, and to see we have to get parliamentarians to now sit and select a boat to go back and give themselves it to vet makes no sense in our book, said Cruikshank. Madam, this is not a member for Siparia saying this. This is not a member for Princestown saying this. This is not a member for Urupuch East saying this. These are the words of these main stakeholders of the industry that have been affected by the woes of the sea bridge collapse. Madam, you're not talking about 1 month, you know. You're not talking about 2 months. You're not talking about 6 months. This has been almost 1 year. We have come full circle, almost 1 year, when the same matters that were raised by Demi John Cruikshank, Reginald Dumas, Martin Daly, and several others have raised in the public domain, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I go on. Cruikshank's position follows last Thursday's revelation by Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, Stuart Young, that the tender process engaged by the port over the last few weeks has failed to source a ferry for the sea bridge. Speaking at last Thursday's post-cabinet news conference at the Diplomatic Centre, St. Anne's, Young has said Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has mandated a 4-member cabinet subcommittee, which includes Young, Finance Minister Col Mimbert, Public Utilities Minister Robin Lahunt, and Tourism Minister Shamfa Kudjo. You know, Madam, I heard the member for Urupuch East attempt to give the member for Laventille West an opportunity to indicate whether or not he's conflicted in this matter. And today I want to ask the member for Laventille West, is the member for Laventille West conflicted in this matter because he has a relative who is employed and works in the interest of NIDCO, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, when we start to connect the dots and piece this puzzle together, you will see, Madam, who has interests where and what are the reasons for these interests.
Leader of the House.
Madam, we have discussed it, but Madam, I am willing to let him complete. Yes, until he completes.
Thank you.
One of him.
Member for
Want to
Princeton.
hear him.
Thank you, Madam. Madam, through you to the Honorable Attorney General, I need no advice from him on law and anything else. You can start spinning on economics since you already fail at law. Madam, I want to quote further for what Cruikshank had to say. He said, we have been patient, and what we did is put our trust in the government, that the government will do the right thing. Thank you, Madam. Madam, further, it says we have been patient, and what we did is put our trust in the government, that the government will do the right thing. It has been going close to a year now, and we are having this serious problem with inter-island transportation, especially the ferry system. Further, Madam, it says it is clear that somebody in Trinidad is not understanding, or somebody just does not care what is happening with the economy and the business sector in Tobago. Madam, I want to repeat that point. Cruikshank, representing the Tobago Chamber of Commerce, says it is clear that somebody in Trinidad is not understanding, or somebody just does not care what is happening with the economy and the business sector in Tobago. Madam Speaker, and they want to know why this motion has been brought. You see, we are answering that motion, this question raised by the Tobago Chamber of Commerce with this motion, Madam Speaker, because we know at whose doorstep it falls at. Madam, the Tobago economy depends on the movement of people between Trinidad and Tobago, primarily by the sea bridge, and to have this operation in limbo so long is an indictment on the government, as they clearly do not understand the serious and negative impact that it is having on the economy, he said. Madam, if you allow me to turn to the words of the Chamber's Inter-Island Transport Committee head, Diane Haddad, noting Young's statements, wondered, where does that leave Tobago? She says, we were promised that the fast ferry issue was going to be resolved. The TNT Spirit is down in Chaguaramas. The TNT Express is limping and taking close to 5 hours to do one journey. We were promised a fast ferry by July this year. We are now heading into December, and this is not fast ferry. More importantly, there is no communication with us from the port management. So, Madam, while they have raised all the issues associated with the sea bridge woes, they're also saying, but listen, all this is happening and we're not hearing from the Minister of Works and Transport. We are not hearing from the Minister of Tourism. We are not hearing from any of the government stakeholders. So therefore, what are we to do? So really, Madam, they are operating in a vacuum, and that continues to remain today. And that is why the member for Urupuch East says we have to depend, just like Tobagonians and many others, on what? A tweet from the member for Diego Martin West to tell us whether the boat is in Honolulu, Diego Martin East, sorry, whether or not the boat is in Mexico, whether it is in Honolulu, it still represents your incompetence, whether you're from Northeast or West. It doesn't change the fact that the people think you're an incompetent member for Diego Martin Northeast. But, Madam, more importantly, when the member, Diane Haddad, the chairman of the Inter-Island Ferries, says, more importantly, there's no communication with us from the port management. So, Madam, even if the politicians are not speaking, a gag order of some sort apparently has been placed on the Port Authority. And we have seen this gag order since, you know when, Madam Speaker? Since Charmaine Lewis was removed.
Remember, this is about the Minister of Works and adverse comments related to the Minister of Works. So I think you need to bring what your contribution is in line with that.
Sure, Madam. Madam, with respect to the port management, with respect to the Inter-Island Ferry Association, with respect to the Tobago Chamber of Commerce, the common thread that binds them all together, Madam, is reflected in what is said in this motion, and that is that they have no faith and no confidence in the ability of the Minister of Works and Transport. That is the fundamental point, Madam. It's very easy to follow, but Madam, you see, what I am getting at is that these views are not only the views reflected by the UNC, but most importantly, we must reflect the views of the stakeholders in this industry as it relates to the member and the Minister for Works and Transport. You see, Madam, whether or not this motion finds success or whether or not it fails today, we have done our duty to the public and to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, because we are reflecting a voice and a common chorus that has started almost 1 year ago to where we are today, and that is Rohan Sinanan is a total incompetent Minister of Works and Transport.
Minister.
Sorry,
Don't
Madam.
call people
Minister.
here by first name. Yes, thank you.
Madam, but we must also look at some of the issues with respect to leadership and providing leadership on this issue. And again, the Minister has been devoid of providing real tangible leadership on this issue as it relates to the communication, but also as it relates to ensuring that Tobago gets what Tobago deserves. And you know, I heard that from several speakers when we first came in here in the budget of 2015, 2016, Madam. Tobago will get what Tobago deserves. Is this what Tobago deserves? Is this your way? You spoke about the Tobago love. Is this the Tobago love, Honorable Minister? You see, Madam, when we speak about leadership, it must also tell us, as head of the government, Prime Minister, member for Diego Martin West, what is the member for Diego Martin West's position as it relates to the Honorable Minister, who has been brought into question with respect to this particular motion, Madam. Madam, I wish to quote from a Newsday article, Tuesday, 20th March 2018, by a leader of the opposition, Kamala Persad-Bissessar. She said that the collapse of the sea bridge is a betrayal, which was even more tragic because Prime Minister Dr. Rowley is Tobagonian. She was speaking with the media at a reception following the inauguration of President Paula May Weeks. She said the people of Tobago were suffering tremendously through no fault of their own, but it was worse with the sitting Prime Minister being a Tobagonian. It is like a betrayal of the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay, your original 30 minutes are now spent. You're entitled to 15 more minutes to proceed. Now remember, this is not about the Prime Minister.
Thank you, Madam. Madam, and she went on to say, who had great expectations and great hope in a son of their island. You know, Madam, as I bring the point together, I am reminded, and the reason why we can't just take the Minister of Works and Transport by himself in a silo, that it is an indictment on the Prime Minister and others. Because the Prime Minister assured us before the general election of 2015 that he will choose the best persons to run ministries. He will choose the best persons to be members of parliament. He will choose the best persons to be ministers. And therefore, Madam, if this is the best, according to Urupuch East, I would not like to see what is the worst. You see, Madam, the Honorable Leader of the Opposition went on to say, it is a tragedy of the highest order. She condemned government's handling of the sea bridge and questioned why it got rid of the superfast Galicia before a new vessel has been acquired. Madam, moving away from that point for just a moment, in terms of not only an indictment on the Minister Sinanan as Minister of Works and Transport, and the leadership of Prime Minister Dr. Rowley and members of this team, I wish to turn to an issue that has been raised by successive speakers, but continues to be the fundamental question in this entire debate that is yet to be answered. Lavantil West jumped left, Lavantil West jumped right, he jumped up, he jumped down, but the question remained. And now I know the circus is in town, but Madam, the question remained after the presentation of Lavantil West. Madam, we are told that on the day that this charter party is signed, the charterers shall cause to be issued to the owners an irrevocable standby letter of credit in the amount of how much? US 3 million over 25 million TT dollars substantially. And it forms the appendix to this document that I hold in my hand, Madam. And Madam, while we speak and we acknowledge the incompetence of Minister Sinanan as the Minister of Works and Transport, supported by all stakeholders in this industry, what they will not get away with, Madam Speaker, coming out from today's debate, is who authorized 3 million US dollars for this company as a guarantee for credit, Madam Speaker. And that is the question they have not answered. So whether Diego Martin, Northeast, wants it to be known as Northeast and West, whether Laventille West wants to jump left or right, all the semantics we have seen in this house today, Madam, it remains with one fundamental question. And that question remains at the doorstep of the Minister of Works and Transport. And I will tell you this, Honourable Minister, through the chair, Madam, we will do whatever it takes legally to get to the bottom of this situation as it relates to whether or not you had a role, together with Prime Minister and others, to ensure that this company received a line of credit while did not provide this service to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. You know, Madam, I will end and conclude with the way in which I started. And Madam, there are a number of other questions that really needs to be answered, and I know that my colleagues will deal with some of those substantial issues. But you see, Madam, when we on this side had a Prime Minister, it was a Prime Minister who dealt frontally with issues. And the member for Laventille West spoke about the member for Siparia having to deal with minister after minister and so on. But I want to congratulate the member for Siparia because she was known as a real Prime Minister. She was not known as Prime Minister Pavement Man. That's not what Prime Minister stood for. The Prime Minister dealt frontally with issues related to ministers who had questions of integrity as it related to what? Public life interests, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, with the swirling amount of accusations and allegations and questions that remain in the public domain at the doorstep of the Minister of Works and Transport, today we are left with more questions than answers. And they can run, but they cannot hide. And I sound warning to them. One of their members already tried hiding from me, Diego Martin Central, and he saw his political demise. Today I sound warning as we stand on sacred ground, right here in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, Madam Speaker. And surely as night follows day, You know, Madam Speaker, I could understand why the member for Laventille West is getting a little bothered. You see, there's a Canadian citizen looking for him right now. And a Canadian citizen looking for the Cayenne Porsche that rolled over his foot. But we will deal with that inside and outside of the Parliament. You see, I am not afraid of any one of them. We can deal with any one of them, anytime, any place, anywhere, on any topic. And Laventille West can run, but he cannot hide. And if I do not deal with it inside this House and reveal the truth, the scandals and deception of the member for Laventille West and others, Madam Speaker,
It's not the issue of the debate. No.
Madam Speaker?
No. Member for Princestown, I realize you might have been distracted. This matter is not about the member of Laventille West. He's not the subject of this debate. While you may be entitled to respond to things he said, this is not the subject now. So could you get back on track? You have a few more minutes left.
thank you, Madam. Madam, our arguments today that were put forward by the member for Tawakit, the member for Rouge East, and myself remains very relevant to the psyche of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. We are here acting in their interest. There is no defense, and you cannot defend the indefensible. And any attempt to do that, to sanitize the Minister of Works and Transport from the allegations and the rumors that swirls around the minister, madam. We will stand in defense of the people of Trinidad and Tobago while you choose party over people of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam, I thank you.
Leader of the House.
At last. Thank you very kindly, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that this House do now adjourn. And Madam Speaker, let me say that on the resumption, we will deal with the Bill number 1 on the current order paper, which is an act to make jurisdiction for criminal matters. And we will also deal with the amendments that have come from the Senate, which are in the appendices, which are attached to this order paper. Thank you very kindly, Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, the question is that this House do now adjourn. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. In accordance with Standing Orders 11 and 12.1, this House now stands adjourned to Friday. This House now stands adjourned to Friday, 4th May, 2018 at 1:30 p.m.